So I'm gonna make you a couple of videos. I separated the videos between like the examples like supply and demand, marginal cost, all that type of stuff. So if you want to learn something, for example, you want to learn just marginal cost, then you would go to the video that's just for marginal cost. And I'm gonna try and make this as kind of podcasty as I can, as much as a podcast as I can. That way, if you can't watch the videos, if you're driving or you can listen to music at work and you want to study, I mean, who knows? Maybe, instead of listening to music, you want to listen to me explain how y equals mx plus b is. That's always exciting. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. This is an introduction video, and I'm going to go over linear function highlight 1. So if you already know linear function, then you don't really have to watch this video. I'm just kind of go over what I think is the more important parts. So we have linear function. Now, linear function, one example of a linear function is y equals mx plus b. And that's usually called your slope intercept form. Sorry if I'm like kind of iffy on this too. I can't really see this is hard. I can't really see what I'm doing. Anyways, it's called the slope intercept form. And that's mostly because it's composed of two things. You got your slope, which is right here. And then you have your intercept, your y-intercept. Now, your slope is your m. It's also called your rise over run. That's, they mean the same thing. When people say your rise over run, they're usually talking about your slope. Also, if people say, for example, let me hold this up. Rate of change. That's also rate. That's also another name for slope. I mean, they all mean the same thing. Your b, which is your y-intercept when x equals 0. Now, what does that mean? That means that basically when you plug in 0 into this equation, your y is going to equal b. Why? I mean, let's just try it out. I mean, why? And we have an example that I'm going to show you why later. But, anything times 0 is 0. And anything plus 0 is itself. And we're going to go over an example of, so you can see how that is. But this is basically your y-intercept when x equals 0. And it's also your constant. So you're going to hear people say that. You're going to hear people say your y-intercept when x equals 0. And you're also going to hear it be called a constant. They mean the same thing. And by the way, just a little side note, I am going to repeat a lot of things. You're going to hear me repeat a lot of things just because I feel like math is really better just repetition. It's just practice. It's like a language. How do you practice a language? Well, you just speak it. You repeat words over and over. Same thing. You're going to hear me repeat things. They're going to become pretty annoying, but that's good. If they're becoming annoying, it's because you probably know what they are and you're getting bored of them. And that's what we want. We want you to know to the point where you get bored because you already know it. Anyways, back to the lesson. So we have a linear function, y equals mx plus b. It's called the slope intercept form. We explained why. It is composed of two parts. The slope, which is your mx, or your m more specifically, and then your y-intercept, which is your b, which is another name for your y-intercept is your constant. Constant, y-intercept when x equals 0, b, they all mean the same thing. So what this is, I like to think about it as a machine that helps create a line. It's basically what happens is you add in a value for x, and the machine pumps out a value for y. And that's pretty cool. For example, you can add in whatever number you want for x. And this machine right here will get that number, work with it, and pump out a value for y. And that's basically what it does. So let's go for an actual example, real life example. Y equals 5x plus 3. I made up this equation as I didn't get it from the book. It's arbitrary. It's completely arbitrary. So let's go back to the machine that we're talking about. You have a value, 0, and you plug that value into your x right here. And then you basically solve it out. It's basic math. This also helps what I mean when I say B is your y-intercept when x is equal to 0. I mean, you can see it right here. We plug in 0, you know, we do the math, and then y is equal to this, which is your b. So when x equals 0, this never changes, which is why it's called a constant. You know, like I said, constant, b, your y-intercept when x equals 0, they all mean the same thing. So let's go back to the example. We can plug in a lot of different values. You already know that. We can plug in a 1 for here, the machine pumps out a value. We can plug in a 2, and here, the machine pumps out a value. We can add a 3, the machine pumps out a value for y. And you can see all the mathematics right here on the side. If you're driving, don't try to watch this. I don't want you to crash. So that's basically how the linear function y equals mx plus b works. You know, one little side note I put it right here actually. Alert, you know, alert. F of x is another way to say y. They mean the exact same thing. So when y equals mx plus b, and f of x is just another name for y, then you can say f of x equals mx plus b. Why? Be the same thing. Like I said, f of x is just a different name for y. You know, a lot of things in math have a lot of different names for some reason. They like to, you know, y equals mx, m, your slope, your rise over run, your rate of change. B, your y-intercept when x equals 0, your constant. They all mean the same thing. F of x, it means y. It's just another name for it. And that's going to come out, that's going to be really important later on. So I would really recommend just memorizing the fact that f of x and y are the same thing. They just have different names. Just how m is also called the slope, which is also called the rise over run, and b is also called the constant, which is also the y-intercept when x equals 0. So I'm sorry about the repetition. It's going to be a lot, but I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it stuck well. If you have any questions, watch the video again, and if you still have questions, let me know. Alrighty.